So in this closing panel, we turn to reflecting over the last few days, a reflection on the direction we're moving forward into, right? Given that the tagline for this year is "Aquí crece el futuro crece aquí," we want to focus now on this last closing panel, our attention on how to translate the ideas that we've spoken about into energy on how to move forward. Where do we go? How do we make what we talked about today and yesterday into lasting, tangible outcomes? And so over the course of this last panel, before we have our closing remarks and end the conference, we're going to give you, let these folks speak on what they are thinking as far as where they can go with their respective organizations. And truly, this is just a sample, because every single one of you in this room has the ability to influence your sphere, right? A sphere of influence. We can all do that. Again, this is just a sample. And so we're going to talk about how to deepen these collaborations, how to make our food system more resilient and truly work for us across sectors, really, and realize this vision we have for our food system, both locally and more broadly across the region, across Texas. So I'm going to give you a short bio on these folks. Jose Perez Vela, he's right here. He's a manager of sustainability at Compass Group, where he works at the intersection of food service operations, data, and execution, turning strategy into action across large, decentralized systems. He leads the enterprise reporting and operational enablement efforts, supporting diverse clients, translating complex data into practical insights that strengthen decision-making and execution in the field. His background includes higher education dining, and community-based food initiatives, where he has supported efforts to maintain strong supplier partnerships, expand food recovery programs, and build systems that improve access and reduce waste across the food system. And so if you all are not familiar with the name Compass Group, that is, they are the parent company of Chartwells. Chartwells is the operator of UTRGV's Student Dining Hall. And so that's his role here, very much plugged into that work. Then we have Dr. Art Rodriguez, an accomplished executive leader with over 30 years of experience in healthcare, public health, and government sectors. He is currently serving as the Director of Health, Wellness, and Animal Services for the city of Brownsville, Texas. He oversees programs that improve community health outcomes and collaborate with local colleges and universities for a broader impact. His expertise spans leadership development, community outreach, and organizational change management. He holds a Doctor of Nursing Practice in Executive Leadership from Texas Tech University, a Master of Public Health from the University of Texas at Houston School of Public Health. He has been instrumental in addressing public health challenges, including emerging infectious diseases and environmental health risks. He is recognized for his work in engaging diverse stakeholders and driving sustainable, measurable change in the region. He is deeply committed to improving health systems and creating opportunities for community-based solutions to complex health challenges. And Mr. Jordan Roney here, he is the farm-to-school educator, one of several, based in Elsa, Texas. He's managing school-based agricultural programs across K through 12 settings, a farmer in his own right, and just a wonderful human being. And so I'm glad to have all of these folks on our stage to ask him a bunch of probing questions for our enlightenment here. So I want to get us started with a brief overview of your organization. So Jordan, I ended with you with a bio. Sure. Why don't you kick us off? Who do you work for at who's Ideal Public Schools, and give us a short overview.
Sure, yeah, thank you, and thank you all. I'm very honored and excited to be here. So yes, my name is Jordan Roney. I work for Idea Public Schools, which is a public charter throughout the state of Texas. There are some campuses in other states as well. And I work for the Idea Farm program. So that's under the umbrella of the CMP program. Across the district, so across 70 campuses, the Idea Farm program has on-campus farms at 12 different campuses. in the Rio Grande Valley, in Central Texas, as well as El Paso and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. On those farms, we are growing and like a diverse vegetable crops. We are practicing regenerative skills, but more importantly, we're hosting and educating students on all these things related to production, regenerative practices, our food system, and providing a really engaging learning space for students, as you said, from K through 12. I manage the campus farm in Elsa, where myself and then another full-time employee oversee all aspects of education arrangements, production for the cafeteria, as well as engagement and audit-related and gap-related practices.
Thank you so much. And that's such an innovative program. There's, you hear of farm to school, and they took that concept and said, we're just going to have the farm at the school. So that's very, very cool. Jose, tell us a little bit about your organization. I kind of spoiled it for folks a little bit, but
yeah,
tell us.
Just a little bit, but yeah, so we're a Compass Group. We are one of the largest food service providers in the world, not just in the US, but in the world. And I would say what really sets us apart is our sectorized approach. We work in and operate in businesses across the business and industry environment with headquarters for businesses and offices. We have the healthcare industry. We also work in sports and leisure as well, so stadiums, something like the FIFA coming up. And we also work in education, not just higher education, but also K through 12 and et cetera. And so in higher education specifically, you already mentioned Chartwell's Higher Education. Chartwell's was founded in 1997. Ever since then, we have over 300 campuses across the US that bring in the approach of student-focused dining experience. And in my opinion, they have reinvented the dining experience for students and putting them at the center of everything we do. And so we also work outside of just the campus experience for students. For example, at the University of Florida, we actually work, Chartwell's brand works to feed the students. We have the Levy business that works in the stadium and feeds fans. And then we have the SSC business who also feeds, they clean and maintain the university grounds. So that is just a broader scope of who Compass is and the approach we bring into the industry.
So Jordan talked a little bit about his role. Tell us, what do you, I said a lot of big words when I gave your bio.
Yeah.
What exactly do you do in layman's terms?
Yeah, I basically look at data. I look at long Excel sheets with food waste and any other data like sourcing data, local data. And I like to talk to chefs and operators and help them understand the data so they can make informed decisions in the business that not only helps our business, but also helps our partners and our clients, that be professionals in the field with the headquarters businesses or if it's students themselves.
Awesome. And Dr. Art Rodriguez, tell us about your organization, City of Brownsville, and might as well tell us, what is it that you do with the city?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us and our team here today. So, I work essentially for the taxpayer. It's a council form government, so the mayor, the city manager, they entrust the directors that they're going to develop work plans. In everyday language, work plans is what are the emerging priorities that are happening with the city, and I'll use the pothole because everyone has a pothole in their community. Not to be funny, but that's my nemesis. And I say that because at the end of the day, my role as a health director is complex in the sense that I have to take every one of our decisions and figure out which one's having the most impact, whether it's a positive impact or a negative impact, and how do we bridge those gaps. Public health for Brownsville is unique as well because we have to work beyond our borders. We work binationally with Mexico, U.S., and the surrounding cities because there's some health issues that are emerging in my world right now is mosquitoes, or loose dogs. Some of these items are seasonal, but we always keep a core focus on core duties that never go away. One of them are people, places, and projects. And as a health director, it's always important that we never lose focus that we have SMEs on board and that they're able to do the job. but because we're government, there's an expectation that we're very transparent. And a big part of that is everything we're doing translate to an understanding of the why we're doing it out in the public.
That makes sense. And so you're alluding, well, let me take a step back before I ask you the question about impact. I want to touch on that. But so just for the audience's sake, we have quite a diversity up here, right? We have city government, we have a private company, global private company, and then we have an educational system, which is a charter school, so it's not a typical public school, but it's a charter, which is, interesting in and of itself. So I want to ask you all about the impact that you are seeing your work having on food systems specifically, but also feel free to elaborate on, even beyond food systems, the impact that you're having on the community at large. So I'll start with you, Dr. Rodriguez.
Absolutely. So it's an evolving, when you, as a city, I have to preface to the audience, as a city, we're very unique, even in the health department realm, because Brownsville particularly has oxbow lakes called resacas. And I bring that into the food system conversation because for many years, it's been that ecology of protecting the waterways that has made us a very unique environmental risk community that has, as a commission, as a city, as a population, Brownsville really values those waterways. And that has evolved over the years into the collective impact that, illegal dumping and all those other conversations that may not be here today feed into the negative nature of what happens when you leave a property desolate and you don't take care of it. In the Brownsville, we're always trying to find ideas on how to remodel the mindset so that the farmers market is a project that began 15 years ago. It began the farmer and the consumer. And fast forward that to today, the conversation today regarding farmers market and farming, these are conversations that had we mentioned these words 15 years ago, there would have been no ability to connect that framework. Today, the framework that we're having conversations about is about community gardens. It's about how does the architecture of the city and its unified code lend itself to more green spaces? How do our parks now become an intricate part of these conversations so that people feel more comfortable going to their park, maybe to explore biology regarding plants or things like that. So these kind of conversations, as if you're in this world, it seems like, but for people who expect their local government to be patching potholes, which are many communities, it's a fast forward thinking model. And to be able to maintain the data around that, to say, the latest survey said people really don't want to talk about nutrition. They don't want to talk about walking. They want to talk about shade. These are very important conduits for us because as our population dynamics are changing, as we have more people moving into Brownsville, they're also engaging in a different type of conversation. We're getting a lot of people from California, and they want to live the California way in Brownsville. And inherently, you are having change conversations where you don't want the person that's been in Brownsville for years to lose that collective impact. You got to retain that old city feel and balance the new. So as a city, it's always a struggle, but as long as you keep authentically to the conversation and show, and leadership's the most important part of this that I want to share with the team. I really believe wholeheartedly that leadership is the key to success. You have to be a leader in every one of these conversations. And even if you don't agree coming in, at least you have an understanding that you're going to walk away and come back, hopefully trying to have a set of outcomes that still move the conversation forward.
That sounds like such a challenge that you're articulating, because on the one hand, we don't want, well, if we have a food desert, or what some folks are calling a food swamp in a community, in a neighborhood, there's no grocery stores, and maybe there's a Dollar General, but it's all junk food, et cetera, highly processed stuff. In a way, you do want there to be a grocery store. And so maybe new folks are arriving with new ideas, like let's install a grocery store. Maybe they have investment money, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, you don't want the neighborhood to be gentrified and push these people out. And I think that's an example of what you're articulating, yeah?
Yeah.
We have to support our communities better, but at the same time, we don't want to outprice them, the people who have been here for generations. So.
And a good example for us was a large big box grocery store moved out of downtown, and we've spent the last 5 years trying to get not just a Dollar General, a DG's, you know, we're not that,
Right.
you know, we're trying to go and keep a Sprout, something that is not priced out at the same time, that doesn't price out certain segments, but is still able to offer the fruits, vegetables without pricing people out. So those conversations need to be had if you intend to find a resolution to the issue.
Have you all found a grocery store operator yet?
My understanding is that there is some really interesting partners stepping up to be able to help that. And if you haven't had a chance to go to Brownsville, there's the Housing Authority of Brownsville has recently done some really great work, which includes community gardens built into those facilities, and the Hotel Jardín, which is in downtown, which now that you have that population density moving in and it's low income, it's allowing us to have the next step conversation of, well, who's going to move in so that access to groceries is 2-3 blocks away. So right now we're starting a new metric. How long does it take for someone to walk to a grocery? Which we had never had that metric before, but it's a conversation that we're developing this year. Hopefully we may not be able to answer it this year, maybe next year, the year after. But if we're not asking ourselves those tough questions, we will never know the answer to it.
Yeah, it's hard to change what you don't measure, right?
Right.
So, amazing. Thank you so much. So, Jose, what sort of impact do you think your work and your organization is having on the food system? And you might be looking at it at a global scale, right? So, give us that perspective and all the way zoom in as much as you can. What impact are you having on the food system?
That's a good question. I would say our scale really is our secret sauce, if you want to say. I believe that with our scale, we can bring partners and help them grow with us. And that's actually one of our programs is Grow With Us. We work directly with smaller farms and help them grow in a more reliable demand than if they were working on their own. And because we have a consistent demand coming in from students, from campuses, from headquarters, from all these different businesses, we have that demand that growers are looking for. And so we help them with our scale. And of course, with the scale comes great responsibility. And so we align our corporate commitments in all sourcing, sustainability, food waste goals, and we combine those to help our partners. We elevate that to help partners meet the needs of all these QA standards, food safety, and general industry standards within the food industry. And so I think our scale is one of those big things. Another piece is also just the power that we have. The buying power that we have is also an influence that helps partners grow. And with that, we work a lot with partners. We work a lot with our farmers. We like to communicate with them, collaborate with them. And I believe that's one of our secret sauces, our powers. Yeah.
And that seems like a double-edged sword too, right? Because absolutely, you almost quoted Spider-Man there, right?
I know. I was hoping someone got the reference.
I'm sure some folks got it, aside from myself. But it does seem like a double-edged sword because you are ingesting this high volume of raw ingredients, maybe not always raw, but ingredients, produce, high volume. And that might be intimidating for some of the people in the room. So I can see how that it can go both ways. But how do you talked about supporting farmers, and is there any feedback loop that you all have built in, or maybe even informal feedback loops to get that feedback from your suppliers that then informs your procurement operations, for example? Does that exist even informally?
Yeah, no, definitely it does. We do have a lot of communication with our partners. I believe our food buy department is the one that more closely works with these partners. But an example of what we've done in the past and what we continue doing is we set out working groups with some of our largest distributors. We put them in the same table with our partners, whether it's a smaller farm, larger farm, and then our distributors themselves, so that they can both align on the needs of the supply chain. And so that is one way that we do. Yeah, I think working groups, forums as well, and then we do have feedback.
So you're very focused on sustainability in the organization. Does your work, so you're looking at data, you're looking at spreadsheets, you're gathering these insights. How does that then get translated into a conversation with your supplier? Do you sort of, if a Compass Group is saying, well, we'd like to be, I'm blanking on an example, but if you're trying to use more recycled packaging or recyclable packaging, how does that actually make its way to the supplier? Is there a direct line of communication? Are you having any kind of influence in that, or are you just measuring it and hoping for the best, or how does that work?
No, yeah, that's a really good question. So let me backtrack on what I do. I look at a lot of data, but we do have a larger team. I work under the corporate sustainability department. We have people who are focused more on sourcing. I work a lot with client engagement, and so I work a lot with our clients. At UTRGV, for example, we have the university board who has hired us to feed the students, and I make sure that we're working with them to, here in the Valley area, right, working with our sourcing local and seasonal produce as an example, but in ways that we connect more with producers is our suppliers communicate with us. What I do specifically, an example, let me backtrack. An example of what I did at the University of Pittsburgh. Whenever I worked at Chartwell's Higher Education as an intern, there it was more so focused on bringing reusables to the campus. And that was an engagement opportunity where I was working more with students and gathering their feedback on what they were looking for. That is essentially what we do in the company at a larger scale with partners who are looking for recyclable materials, partners who are looking for ethically sourced produce, chicken, etc. And the way that I engage with them personally is that not so much on the sourcing side, but when there is an interest to join the company, a lot of times that'll come to our team. And then our team will communicate that to Food Buy, which is our sourcing department. And so because we are a large company, we do have a lot of different departments, and it is our job essentially to communicate the needs of the field, that being the university, what are their needs, what are the client's goals, what are their sustainability commitments. We communicate that to our team and then find the companies, partners, farmers who are looking to grow with us.
So it seems very customer driven, which
Yes.
to me tells me that every single person in this room, the louder we say, this is what I want more local ingredients, I want more regeneratively grown products, I want more organic options, I want more ethically sourced, et cetera, the more you speak up and say those kinds of things, the more these global companies who sometimes from a consumer's perspective seems like you're not listening, but what you're saying is, yeah, you are listening through our choices, right? And that's how we get to say, hey, we'd rather be sourcing from this person than this other thing. So is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. Choice architecture is something we look at a lot in just a menuing perspective. We look at carbon, of course, and reducing carbon. And what you order, what you purchase, the feedback you give us, that matters a lot because that informs who we partner with, what we want to buy more of, and what we want to bring to your tables the most. So absolutely on the dot. We want to hear your feedback. We want to be engaged with you. Even though we are a large company, we find ways to do that. This being an example, I already wrote down some things that they mentioned in the previous panel on working with chefs or finding a chef to bring to the university or to the farmers market and engaging with them. That's honestly something that we already partner with UTRGV, and I feel like that might be an opportunity for us to engage there. And these are the ways that we do find those engagement points.
I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to hold you back. But I want to ask Jordan, same kind of question, same topic. How is and yours is super direct. You're working with kids, you're on the ground, and perhaps you're not farming as much every day. I think you still are to a certain extent, right? But you're still very much on the ground, on the farm, engaging with students. How is your work impacting the food system in your community?
So we're impacting the food system in our community through direct, like involving the students in the process of growing food. You know, I do feel that each generation is almost more removed than the other in regards to their food and where it comes from, right? So we are having students from, you know, seed to harvest participate and take part in the growing of food and seeing the amount of effort that goes into it, right? Seeing the how when it's done properly, it can actually revitalize and build up lands and build up soil, right? Especially in the practices that we're using with regenerative practices and minimal inputs, right? And then we're also teaching those values to the students as well. Well, we're doing this because ultimately we're going to be yielding more resilient, healthier crops, maybe not today, but down the road, right? And students that have been coming out to that farm over the years, even in the time that I've been there for 5 years now, I've seen the soil and then the ecosystem within itself on that one little small plot of land improve year after year, right? The soil's better, there's more diversity in beneficial insects, right? There's a lot of native plants that are coming up from the soil, right? And then imparting those to the students, and then helping them to understand just from food to plate, where that comes from and what a healthy system looks like in regards to the food system, but also when the food is being grown itself.
And the hope is that those students then go out into the world and
yes, absolutely, and then
advocate for this kind of...
Yes, absolutely. We're still involving them, providing a space where they may not normally have access to, right? Igniting interests in them in regards to agriculture or agronomy or whatever it may be. And then also we do engagement events there on the campus, right, with where family members are able to come and we're able to have conversations, or we're able to engage and have conversations with their parents and community, people within the community as well, and share the practices that we're doing and talk about kind of what our mission is and what our values are and, you know, where we're coming from.
Yeah, and I know kids love to share with their parents, actually with anybody, but they love to share, like, hey, this is what I learned, and they're taking those learnings home.
Absolutely. Oh,
their
absolutely.
Parents will catch on, their older siblings will catch on and say, what's regenerative beef, or what is rotational grazing, or what is kale, right? And so
yeah.
I think that's going to be really, as they're learning about it, as you and your fellow farmers are teaching them. That's awesome. So where do we go from here? You talked about what you're doing with these kids and what we hope that they go out and do and how this ecosystem is growing. Where do we go from here? Like, what's the next step to drive further impact? Because as Dr. Alexis Rosales was saying in the last panel, there's a sense of urgency,
Sure.
but what do we do?
Right.
What's your next step?
So you know, starting yesterday, arriving here and partaking in the Food Summit, and I've participated in the Food Summit in years past as well, and it's an incredible event, but I do see a certain element of youth missing from it, right? And so something like this that is directed towards the youth, right? That is for the youth, centered on the food system and agriculture in the RGV, that is, I guess, centered and focused for them, right? So that they can come and hear from all the amazing people that are part of this, right? And learn and get more insights onto what's taking place and how to, you know, improve and build upon the goals and the values that we're trying to do here.
Yeah. What about you, Jose? You were starting to get into that, and I wanted to wait or save it until this, but how do you, let me actually go from global, from your perspective, to UTRGV, because there's a lot of local folks here. How does UTRGV drive this impact further, the impact that they're having on their local food system? What is within their control? What can they do to say, we're going to do our part to improve the food system here?
Being here is a good example, a good start. We want to be here as well. That's why I'm here. The UTRGV client basically wanted to participate in this, and our job was to be here and listen to everyone. And so I guess to answer your question, what can you do, is do exactly what you're doing and engage with us. One of the biggest things that we can do is not just engage, but collaborate. Collaborate, not working in silos. If we work in silos, we're never going to get anywhere. And so collaboration is key. Being a part of working sessions, engaging with us, speaking up whenever you're interested in working with us, finding ways and avenues for us to collaborate on a farmer's market, being a part of our farmer's market. And yeah, I think that's the main thing, is collaboration, not working in silos.
Yeah. What about you, Dr. Rodriguez? You all are doing some amazing work in the city of Brownsville, but what would you like to see? What would you like to see the city of Brownsville doing, and what can you do?
I was reflecting on these conversations, and I'll use a recent example. We met with pediatricians and endocrinologists because we know that there's a lot of children that are becoming more obese at a younger age. And we met with them to ask the question, the why, the how, and how do we relate to this. But the answer we got from them is we can't engage that conversation because the parents kind of freak out on us, because the culture is, if your baby isn't plump, then it's not a healthy baby. So we came back and we recently had a festival called Cilantro Festival, which the festival itself is a how-to festival.
Cilantro with S-I, right? Like
Yeah.
yes in Spanish.
So,
Yes.
so just, I'm going to segue a little bit into the cilantro and then come back to that,
Sure.
to the DASH event. But cilantro is an event that we just put on March 21st, and the whole point was cilantro is S-I, as a C, and then lantro is the urban dictionary version of what is the best version of yourself working with others. So the premise of the festival is we want to teach you how to grow, how to eat, how to cook, how to dispose of it so it goes back into the soil and things like that. The whole premise in our core tenet with the Cilantro Festival will always be on teaching everyday folks on how to do these activities. But one of our most popular activities during the Cilantro Festival was the youth, engaging the youth. We were teaching them how to pot plants, how to grow different types of things. And take that conversation with our conversation with a pediatrician who's not able to engage the parent. We know every year going forward, we're going to have a measuring bar of kids growing up, so that we want the same youth coming back year after year. And they can measure their own growth as a parent, and we can give them answers to the test, being if you eat these type of foods, you're more likely to be taller than wider. Those kind of conversations, because they're not easy conversations, and if we can have it in a different kind of format and have fun along the way, it engages in a different way. So one of the signature events that we're going to be having moving forward are going to be DASH events. And that, pun intended, dash of cilantro, dash, because there'll be events that will capitalize on an already existing event, and we're going to try and put a youth component. We work very closely with our libraries. We work very closely with our park system. So we don't want to reinvent those activities that are out there. We just really want to collaborate and have opportunities to bring folks who really want to engage youth to, instead of a 1 mile run for kids, maybe a 100-yard run. And maybe what they get is something that, as we say, we're always asking for help. It could be something that those little stuffed animals that are on social media or something like that. We really just want to engage the youth so that we are participatory and they become the next generation that has a fundamental understanding, and as we reflect, they become engaged in the community and they drive the change in the community, especially as it relates to wellness and obesity and diabetes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to give the audience some time to ask questions, but first, let me make sure I got all of my questions here for you all. And so, this question about commitments. Testing. Thank you. This question about commitments is one that came up yesterday in the morning, and Lori Atwood Ramos, the purchasing director of Region 1, she talked about how she was part of this panel or listening in on a panel and decided, because of what was being spoken on there, made a commitment to take action. And so, and it's those small commitments by each and every one of us that allow the movement to move forward, right? And that's not always just for somebody else. It could be for us as well, too. And so I want to ask you all, before we open the question up, or the floor for questions from the audience, what small or big commitment can you give today to say, this is what I'm committed to do, to work for our citizens, our farmers, our water, our students, our meals, our what have you. I guess to give you all some time to think, because I'm putting you on the spot here, I can commit to it further. I can commit to focusing on school meals, because that's something that is super close to my heart. It's very much, I kind of come from this world of food. I've been working in restaurants since I was 13 years old, and so it's easy for me to kind of step into that. But, so I can commit to focusing and making every change, every effort that I can to change, to improve rather, school meals. And so I want to ask you all, what can you commit to again, big or small?
I have. You know, the commitment is not to forget the why we're here. And in many ways, leadership is very important. And I keep bringing that word up in organizational development, because in local government, the turnover, you know, you can go through a city manager or 2 or 3 in a 3-year, and your goals change. So the commitment for us is every one of our employees has an understanding of what our mission is, and our mission driven, and the why we exist. That way, if the bus takes me out, my next generation of employees understands the why we're doing things. So leadership plays a very different role. Now, as it extends specifically to the farmers in the row, is we need to hardwire those into the organization so that even the next person coming in doesn't really understand exclusively the work. It's already hardwired in, so that some of the metrics and the deliverables and the outcomes, regardless of who's in charge, can still be measured year after year after year. So find a way to hardwire those commitments into your organization so that regardless of what episode happens, you're always able to come back to it and pick up where you left off.
I like that. Thank you so much. Jose?
Yeah, for me, I would say there's a big focus in what I've heard so far in the sessions is action that cares, and taking action that you're considering the caring of students and not just looking at food costs or food efficiency. That really spoke to me. A lot of what I look at is data, and coming from being at a university as a student, growing up in a household where food wasn't as prevalent for me. It wasn't always at the table. Going to a university where I had a meal plan and had access to food really meant a lot, and it was a big difference. But the biggest difference and the focus in what I do is making sure that we are expressing our care in the work that we do and embedding that in everything that we do. And so my commitment here is specifically to the RGV area is working with UTRGV a little more directly, and bringing to their table everything you've mentioned, and the focus of everything here so that they understand how much of an impact they really make on the area. I know we already do a lot, but something like a teaching kitchen and bringing that to a farmer's market nearby is powerful. And that's something I used to do at the University of Pittsburgh, is we even went to go visit farms and met with farmers, and later we purchased all their turkeys for Thanksgiving. And just bringing that same aspect and perspective here to the RGV area, it seems like something that we can look at.
Amazing, thank you. I know there's a lot of people in the room who would like, who are excited to hear that, and also are anxious to work with the University Dining Hall in that capacity even more. Jordan?
Yes, so today Something I've been reflecting on that I kind of touched on earlier, my commitment is to seek out opportunities for students that take them away from the farm that they're familiar with, right, and the things they're learning there, to other spaces kind of like this. So they can further, they can learn more, they can be exposed to other professionals in their field, right? They don't know what they don't know in regards to agriculture and the opportunities that are there that are, they might just think it's just farming, right? But there's a lot more behind it, and students aren't going to know that, aren't going to be made aware of that unless there are spaces for them to learn and be exposed to those sort of things. So my commitment is to find with the students that I work with personally, that other ones within my district here, what spaces, what places could they attend or join that they could learn more and further their advocacy and I guess interest and desire in what we're teaching them there on the farm.
Awesome. There were some students here throughout this conference, so I agree that's a wonderful learning opportunity. I was not at conferences when I was 13 or whatever, so I think that's a huge learning opportunity. I want to turn it now to audience questions. If you have a burning question, I'm looking at you, then come on over here close to the camera if you can, please, and we'll let someone hand over a mic if possible, so you could ask your question.
I think we have all the mics. Yeah.
Okay, well, hey, thank you guys so much for your wisdom. I think this is a really important panel, right? Because it's like culminates everything that we've heard and learned from all of the different panelists and speakers. And I love that Hernan has the liberty to put each of you guys on the spot, because we're going to check in with you next year and be like, okay, what have you done, right? I think that's all, you heard me in the previous panel. We always ask people to do a little bit more. And it is hard to ask people to do more. And I think when you accept that kind of call, it is a form of leadership and service that you heard J.D. Hogan talking about. So thank you guys all for accepting it, even here on this stage when you're under the camera and under Hernan's pressure, right? But I had a specific ask from some of you. And Jose, I'll apologize if I was outside kind of debriefing after our panel. But if I understand, you work for Compass, right?
Correct.
So here's the thing. It's like we can ask people to do more, or we can ask people to do what they're supposed to do, right? For me, my job is to do research, to teach, and I do that well. And I do more of things that I don't necessarily get paid for, but within the context of my profession. For the sustainability officer at a food distribution company, it's your job to think about these things and put into practice. We have had extensive negotiations with Compass at UTRGV about putting together a plan. Actually, we put together a very visionary bid to see who would, a call for proposals to see who would bid to match our vision, which is we want local food purchasing. We want kind of a plan on thinking about food waste, for example. And the company who responded best to that was Compass, right? And for that reason, you guys won the 10-year contract. I want to see if you can, in fact, tell us what your metrics are to the things that you promised that you said you would do. No, that's my first question. That's a difficult one, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine too. But Hernan has your number, so I can call you later to get those answers. Yeah. The second question is more of a practical one, right? Because one of the things that we had talked about was the university purveyor buying food from the university farm 3 miles down the road. That meets that we are offering as the hub to help you as a company do the job you said you were going to do, which is to buy local and to have the sustainability platform. However, in our negotiations with Compass, we find it very difficult to meet the corporate expectations of Compass, which of course your hands often are tied about, hey, even though you're exempt from this food safety, the FSMA regulation, we still need you to be GAP certified, as you might already know. In order for us to get GAP certified, it costs us $3,800 to do that. And for a small farm, any small farm, that's a significant amount, right? Now, so I think the request is that, you know, we're looking for ways to help you do your job, but we don't want to take the burden, right? It's not our job for you to buy, it's not our job to provide local food for you, it's your job to buy local food from us, right? So I want to hear what your thoughts are about how you might facilitate this cooperation between your institution and another institution that wants to help you do that work.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I do want to pivot and say that I don't want to speak on metrics themselves not being directly involved in the UTRGV contracting conversations, but I do want to get your number and talk about things after, right, and communicate that. But holistically, to answer your question, and yes, you already mentioned it once, we do have different or very stringent compliance pieces in terms of food safety, food quality, those pieces that I mentioned earlier, and those are something that we do hold at a corporate level and commitments that we made. And so because of that, yes, things can be complicated to start the ball, but that doesn't mean we can't work towards that, and that's not something that, you know, we can have a conversation on. So I think from this, I'm not answering your question to what your standards are. I'm sure what you want me to answer right now, but I don't really want to answer it the wrong way right now. So I would rather have this conversation elsewhere.
I mean, I'm just, you know, what I'm trying to focus on here is really this, like, this partnership piece, right? This is what the discussion has really been on these last 2 days, is how can we partner so that each of us who have taken on a small piece of that responsibility of advancing a food system vision that we all share, like how can we help each other, right? So we have, you're sitting next to city officials, you're sitting next to educators, and somebody asked this question, how often do you guys sit in a room together and say, well, what can we each do, right? And
Correct.
so, I mean, I'm sure that you've had these kinds of comments before, but you know, as a large kind of, as a large institution, but you know, one of the things with large institutions, you know, someone like me, I don't have that much reservation of asking them to do more because you have the resources to, right? So this is, I'm just going to put it out there, right? And I would love to have that conversation with you. I can't speak on behalf of procurement, but I can speak on behalf of that side of that research and education piece that that's part of my job. And if there's any way that we can work together, I'm gonna put it out there.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate that, and that's what really matters to me coming to this summit and hearing from y'all is what matters to you. And I want to make sure, like, my commitment is vocalizing that.
We're going to talk at the reception, okay? Yeah.
I got you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Alex.
You know, I want to make a commitment publicly. So you all may not be aware, but the city of Brownsville offers a small 4-ounce salad and water to every one of its employees during the lunch hours. Every employee for the city of Brownsville has access to that. And yesterday, while hearing the panel, is we source the salads from the major grocery stores. So in this year, I'm going to work so that we source those salads locally.
Awesome. Well,
I think that's it, right?
if there are no more questions, I think that's it. Thank you all very much for your time, and a round of applause to the panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much.